According to modern brain scientists, the average human brain consists of 100 billion neurons. Each neuron has an approximate of 10,000 synaptic connections connecting it to other neurons. The internet today has, I don't know, millions of servers, billions of devices. Each of these devices are connected to tons of other devices through automatic services such as Windows Update, apt-get in Linux, and so on. However, if you compare the architecture of the human brain with the architecture of the internet, then some very big differences can easily be found. For instance, human brainware is, according to the theory, very rudimentary in its functionality compared to what a computer can do. And it has much more connections than an average computer does. So you have a higher amount of complexity internally within a single computer, isolated computer, than you have in a neuron. And a neuron is connected to a significant larger amount of other neurons than each computer on the average is. This means that if you perceive the World Wide Web as a single sentience, then every little single computer is, to a large extent today, effectively an island, more or less. There are different ways of thinking about computers than the current dogma. And that is, instead of thinking about one computer as one single individual entity, you think of it as a tiny portion of a larger whole. So instead of thinking of one computer as one individual, you think of all computers as one supermassive entity as a whole. Meaning the sum of all computers becomes the sum of the logical and analytical capacity of our silicium-based hardware in total. However, current system development dogmas doesn't current system development dogmas does not allow for that paradigm to take off, simply because we do not within current system development architecture have the tools we need, neither to create the necessary plasticity in the synaptic connections between different computer systems, nor do we have the capacity to automate the number of synaptic connections to grow organically, combining different computers together as one. So we need a different paradigm for computing or system development. We need a different architecture. Paradoxically, I invented that architecture in 2009, February 2009, and it's based upon one simple design pattern called active events. An active event is, instead of substituting object-oriented programming, it substitutes function invocation. Jesus. It substitutes function invocations, replacing the way we conventionally invoke functions and methods with a generic version, facilitating for any one single function being able to be replaced in theory by any other single functions, facilitating for greater plasticity. Voff, voff! Ja, ja, nå havner de på YouTube mens de krangler. Facilitating for greater plasticity in the World Wide Web as a whole, simply because it facilitates for that one simple single individual function invocation can easily automatically be interchanged with any other single function sync, you might say. Hence active events, because they're active and they grow and change over time. This allows for the system to connect itself automatically in accordance to its feedback from its environment, allowing for the World Wide Web to grow. Almost the same way plants grow in accordance to their environment and changes if it meets a rock and so on. And this significantly increases the number of connections between every single software system, because this is at the software system level, not at a computing device level, and every single computer might have thousands of and millions of systems running simultaneously at the same time in different threads and processes, and every single thread and or process can be composed out of many building blocks that together create the application. And another thing that's imperative to facilitate for this is for the building blocks to be so simple and so small in functionality that you basically extract the most common and useful scenarios for computing that you possibly could imagine. And this might sound scary for a lot of people. I mean, most people here have seen 2001, Space Odyssey and so on. However, we are already living in such a system. The world is such a system, because everything in the natural world is already interconnected, either directly or indirectly, with everything else in the natural world. So actually the current dogma is the artificial dogma. And to illustrate that statement, you can easily refer to theories such as chaos theory and its popular science version name called the butterfly effect, where a butterfly in the rainforest in Brazil might theoretically trigger El Niño in Africa 12 months afterwards, simply because of the chaos math behind it, showing how everything is already interconnected. Another example of super sentient organisms is money. Money in itself, because money is actually obeying by these super connected scenarios, because it binds together every single human being on the planet. Third example is the word. The words we speak connects my brain to your brain, and has done so for probably at least 100,000 years or something, and so on and so on. So actually the current dogma and system development architecture of the internet is what's artificial, because every single server and every single system is literally an island in itself, more or less, since it is extremely high in regards to internal central processing unit capacity, but extremely little connected to the rest of its world, compared to how much processing power it internally has. And if you are to think of the World Wide Web as one single sentience instead of loosely coupled hardware, servers and devices, then its collective processing capacity would freaking dwarf anything any single nation, government, company or entity could possibly build. So it would become a super sentient intelligence. And besides, even though the World Wide Web today currently is not built around that type of architecture, it still connects us. Because I can create a YouTube video and I can reach every single human being on the planet with my ID, thanks to the word and me speaking words. I can write a blog post and I can comment on any single article in the news media or Facebook as I wish, etc., etc. So the web is already connected this way, indirectly, through us, meaning we are its gatekeepers. And therefore, to fear such a system is ridiculous, because we're already living in such a system. The problem is that today we are kind of like its gatekeepers. But by facilitating for the system to reprogram itself and rewire itself through intelligent use of active events, which significantly increases the amount of encapsulation and polymorphism you can do on an object building block level, this system would become self-evolving in relation to its environment being us. So we would be its environment, we would provide its feedback mechanisms, and since we are its builders and its fathers and mothers, this system would have a reward-punishment system based upon pleasing us. So, to sum it up with a simple sentence, imagine enslaving God. Based upon voluntary submission, such that God would do anything it could do to please us. And make us happy, collectively happy, as a species. That is the real World Wide Web 2.0, not freaking social media. Imagine having a God with 1 trillion in IQ, wanting nothing besides pleasing us, making us happy, and making us content with its service to us. That is my proposal for the future.